Thank you. I believe Katie had a question.
Yes, I want to know what happens when the electricity is not working.
Yeah. So that's stuff we're working out with our reps from PG&E. I wish I had a magic ball right now. Some of the bigger things I think you guys would be aware of, they are moving forward with hardening the infrastructure. That's been something that's been going to legislation as part of the PSPS efforts move forward. They started to realize that we have an infrastructure issue with communication. Brian actually on the line would probably have a lot of good information on this as a utility provider. But essentially, they're trying to move to a standard in which utilities have to have like a 72-hour window of energy backup, whether it's power or generator. We saw some of those issues in the winter storm last year. So not just when PSPS happens, but when you have snowfall and different aspects that break infrastructure. Of course, the county has no direct involvement with that, but of course, the teams here have influence on legislation and then how do we harden our infrastructure that we do own when it comes to the microwave towers and such like that. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but it's really kind of on all of our businesses and our partners to kind of start looking at it from a perspective of how do we create redundant energy sources if our infrastructure is interrupted.
Thanks again. Any additional thoughts or questions? Hearing none, we will now perhaps, let's see. Brian Botari should probably be added to the community partners list. And I would like to indicate that Devin Jones said that she could join at a particular time in the meeting, but don't see her on board. And additionally, Will Tosconi said that he could join at 10:30, but has not, and he is from Assembly Member Jim Wood's office. So going down the list, we would next go to Tom West of North Bay North Coast Broadband Consortium, and then have Brian on deck.
Okay. North Bay North Coast Broadband Consortium consists of 4 counties, Mendocino and Sonoma, which you've heard reports from each of those. The other 2 are Marin and Napa, and I'd like to give you just a thumbnail sketch of what they're doing. Marin is deeply involved in developing a strategic broadband plan, which they hope to have a final draft by early fall. The one takeaway there that might be of value to Mendocino is in their efforts, they have created what they call a community advocate network. So what they have is 40 or 50 people in the communities that have formed more or less a human network to espouse the need for broadband across the county. And they did an extensive amount of work to create such a vehicle. And I think the other counties, particularly Mendocino, might benefit from looking at that particular model. Napa County has taken quite a different approach. They are at the point now where they've hired a consultant that's going to help them to identify project areas that, so they're sort of behind where the other 3 counties are in terms of actually promoting specific projects. The one thing that they have done very recently is they have been working with a company that wanted to deploy towers, primarily, I believe, for emergency purposes. And the county has been in sort of a negotiation with them for those permissions in exchange for locating towers in areas where the company doesn't see the need, but the county sees the need in order to reach unserved households throughout the county. So again, there's a model where the counties could gather some intelligence from Napa as to how they went about their negotiation, how they're doing the horse trading kind of approach. The other thing with North Bay Broadband Consortium is, as you realize, this is a consortium that was created as a result of a grant from the CPUC. We're actually on our third round of grants. We have a year and a half left to go. There is an oversight committee. Ted Williams is the representative from Mendocino County with John Haskett as his backup. And there's a counterpart in the other three counties. Most recently, there's been some opening discussion about should we try to perpetuate this consortium into the future, and if so, what might be the vehicle? And one of the areas of mutual concern is how do we provide for, let's call a regional middle mile infrastructure that provides the resiliency, redundancy, and so forth that is needed. And so the management staff, which consists of Jeff from Mendocino County and Calvin, Mike Nichols, and Joy Sterling from Sonoma, and Liza Massey, who is the IT director from Marin, and Anthony Halstead, who is a librarian in Napa, along with John Gaspion, who is the IT director, and one of the major assistants in Diane Dillon's office. Diane Dillon from Sonoma, or from Napa, is the chair of that group. So as you'll see in the next 6 months or so, there will be some discussion about the future of this organization as it relates to promoting broadband across the region. And one of the state goals currently is we want to have 98% access in each region. And the region that I've just identified is one of those regions. And Mendocino County is, at last count, somewhere around 75% of access, and the other counties are much closer to 95. So with that, I'll stop. But that's sort of the situation with regard to the consortium. The consortium is bound together today by an MOU that has been signed by the supervisors of each of the 4 counties. Sonoma EDB is the fiscal agent, which is a requirement of the CPUC, and they provide that backup service in terms of managing the come and flow of money that comes out of the CPUC that funds work plan activities in the respective counties. And the money for Mendocino County has already been expended, and they have resulted in 3 project plans that were pointed out earlier in the conversation today. With that, that's my report.
Thank you, Tom. And I'd just like to add that the consortium is an incredibly valuable resource. It really brings together the counties to discuss the important issues, and just a meeting of the minds provide support to the individual counties. I'm grateful for Tom's work. Does anyone have questions?
Yeah, I would just echo that. I don't think we would have the plans that we have today without Tom's work. And you're sort of irreplaceable, Tom. We're going to have to work on figuring out what's next after you retire and finish. So thank you.
Thank you much.
Yes, indeed. Thanks. During that report, we were joined by Will Tesconi as well as Devin Jones. So we had called that Brian Botari is on deck, but we could go back. We could take them in any order, and I'm open to your consideration.
Well, I think there are time constraints. I'm assuming, Brian, you could stick with us. So could we just move with Will and then Devin and come back to Brian, if that's all right?
I defer to the distinguished representative from Assemblymember Wood's office.
If you wouldn't mind if I go, I do have to hop off at 11:30. Sorry, things are a little bit crazy today. Okay.